very good. Good evening. Let me call to order the regular meeting of the St. Helena City Council for October 13, 2015. We just returned from closed session. We had no reportable action, if I have that down correctly. Ms. Kroll, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Ms. Black.
Mayor Galbraith?
Here.
Vice Mayor White?
Here.
Councilmember Kroll? Here. Doring?
Here.
Pitts?
Here.
Next item on our agenda is public forum. Does anybody wish to speak at public forum? Seeing none, our next item. Oh, excuse me? No?
The gentleman in the back, did you want to speak with public forum?
Well, now?
Yes.
Well,
You come up to the microphone, please.
explain to me that the item number 18,
You'd have to, I'm sorry, you need to come to the
If it's-
podium.
If it's,
I think I'm going to pass tonight.
Okay.
okay.
What I need to say should be discussed with the planning director first.
Okay, very good. Anybody else at public forum? Okay. Reports by staff and city council. Let's start with staff. Ms. Phillips?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I have a couple of items. I just wanted to provide an update. As part of the council goals, the council had directed us to look at the city's fees that we charge for services, our impact fees that we charge along with development, and our rate review, which is our water and wastewater enterprise funds. The RFPs went out and proposals have been received and they're being reviewed this week, and we hope to bring contracts to council in early November. So it's an update on your goals and letting you know that work's moving forward on those. And then I have an update from the school district. Tomorrow night here, they are conducting a local control accountability plan called an LCAP and a strategic plan to talk about the school district and how they're delivering services to their students and meeting their goals and objectives. And I've been participating on that committee, and I'll be here tomorrow night as well.
What time is it?
5:30 is registration, and the meeting begins at 5:45. Thank you.
Mr. Brown?
Nothing from the city attorney.
Okay, Ms. Black? Mr. Palmer?
Just a quick update. The Public Works crews are busily at work getting ready for the rainy season. It's 96 degrees today, but still we're preparing. We've been cleaning storm drain inlets and doing additional street sweeping and cleaning out ditches this week. So we're going to have everything wrapped up by the end of the month in preparation for winter.
Very good. Ms. Mitz?
Thank you. I want to let everybody know that our utility billing staff has been working with Jennifer Toole on sending out regular leak adjustment letters and leak letters to citizens to let them know and inform them if they have potential leaks on their property, as well as they just finished a pretty major internal audit on going through all of our utility bills and just verifying that all of the commodity fees match what type of service they're actually receiving. So that was a pretty big undertaking by Jennifer Weeks. So we're glad to get that under our belt and done.
And I assume, as in any such process, there were adjustments both ways.
Yes, there were adjustments. So the letters went out to the very various entities, businesses, primarily businesses, and then we also made the adjustments on their bills.
All right. All right. I think that police chief. Chief Bowden.
I just want to let everybody know that our live scan machine is back and operational as of today, finally. So if any time in the last 6 months you've tried to get live scan done and been told we can't do it, that's no longer the case. We're open for any fingerprinting and all live scans, so come on down. And then we've also created a emergency notification system for the private and small schools that are not part of the Unified School District, so that we can notify them of any emergency incidents in town, so they won't get overlooked in the future. That's it.
All right. Yes, Ms.
Heidi's not here, so I just wanted to remind the community about our Harvest Festival this Saturday.
All right. Took
So
the
we
words
hope-
out of my mouth.
Well, then I'm going to stop there and you can finish.
All right. Very good. Mr. Doring?
No, thank you.
Mr. White? Mr. Pitts?
Just a quick Napa LAFCO update. Our sphere of influence and municipal service review update is a few years past due at this point, and I want to let the public know that we have been discussing it at LAFCO, and we've decided to, in a new structure, hire an outside consultant to conduct all of the Up Valley MSR and SOI updates, and so we're in the process of reviewing proposals from 3 firms. We'll soon select a firm or firms to move forward with that process. It'll still take 9 to 12 months to complete, but it's going to get started sooner than later. So that's good news.
All right. Ms. Kroll?
Nothing, thank you.
All right. Just a few things. In terms of the League of California Cities, you'll all be pleased to note that I voted as directed by council. The 4th resolution, which sought a compensation program by Southern California Edison for significant downtime, that was actually withdrawn. What was interesting there was that the discussion at the League very much paralleled the discussion that we had here. So we hit the big issues there. The one item that I thought was of significant interest is SB 593. I'm learning that some statutes are on a 2-year cycle. This seems to be on a 2-year cycle going through the legislature. It has strong League support, and it would bar operators of transit residential hosting platforms from advertising in violation of local law, and it would also require quarterly reporting of such rentals to local jurisdictions, and the reporting requirements are significant and meaningful. And if this were to get through the legislature, it would certainly help us on our short-term vacation issue. So I'm hoping strongly that it gets through in the next session. As the city manager was mentioning, October 17th is the Harvest Festival. Fun run at 8:30, pet parade at 9:30, festival from 11 to 4 p.m. And the city, as I understand it, will have a booth with its water conservation toolkits. And then October 24th, we have the Rally for Rianda, including the car parade from Calistoga down to St. Helena, with the cars parking at Vineland Station. That also should be great fun, and I hope everybody in the community can make a little time to get down to Vineland Station that day. So that's it from me. The next item on the agenda is staff briefing by Jennifer Toole. If you come forward, Jennifer.
Good evening. Let the TVs wake up real quick. And my bucket. Okay, so I'm here to give you my monthly update about water and talk about some of the things that are upcoming. So I changed this graph just a little bit and changed the color on the side. Council had demonstrated or talked about that we would like to be hitting a 25% reduction with water. And you can see on the right side, in June we did meet that, but since June we have not met the 25% reduction. And so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And we're very close, but we are not quite meeting that with water production, so even with the current regulations. Bell Canyon Reservoir is at 67%. You can see that the line is starting to dip a little bit more than it was last year. And so we're monitoring all this closely. So one of the ways that I'm trying to get the education out there about water conservation is to get people excited about water conservation and also have them changing the language from drought, because there's a lot of talk about El Nino's coming, and some sources say that El Nino's going to save our water system, and then there's other sources saying it's a 50-50, depends on where the rain comes. So I'm working really hard on talking about this is a new normal. This isn't just because of a drought. This is water-wise. So it's changing the language, shifting away from drought, and this is a water-wise toolkit, getting people educated about a new way that we're going to be living in California. So the WaterWise toolkits that I have put together are right here. They come in this nifty bucket donated by Steve's Hardware. So we have low flow shower heads, and these are 1.5 gallons per minute. A lot of standard shower heads are between 2 to 5 gallons per minute. So with a 5-minute shower, you can just imagine quickly doing the math. It can save 25 gallons of water. And with that, we have Teflon tape to also go with your new shower head for leaks. A 5-minute shower timer, because we're encouraging people to do a 5-minute shower, which also cuts down on water. Automatic hose nozzle shut off. Outdoor timer, so people that don't have automatic timers on their irrigation system, if they don't have a built-in irrigation system, this can attach to the hose spigot, and you can set it for 3 minutes or 5 minutes or however long you would like to water. I know a lot of people will set their kitchen timer and then forget that they are watering and not hear the timer, so this automatically shuts off the water. We have, these will be hard to see, but bathroom and kitchen faucet aerators, which also cut the flow of water. A rain gauge. Part of the reason with the rain gauge is one of the regulations is no watering within 48 hours of measurable rainfall. So this is a tool that you can measure the rainfall, and it's also a tool that you can put in your lawn to determine how much water your lawn is actually getting for those people who are still watering their lawns and making sure you're not overwatering. And then the final thing I have in here are toilet leak dye tabs. This is basically a concentrated food coloring that you put in the tank of your toilet, wait 15 minutes, and if there's color in your bowl, you have a silent leak. So this is a really great way to determine if the flapper in your toilet has cracks or is starting to go bad. So one of the reasons why I'm doing the toolkit is to get people talking. Everyone loves free stuff. And so with giving free stuff, I can also promote some of the things that we're doing. And so these toolkits will be available starting on Saturday. I have 500 complete toolkits to give out, and I am going to ask people if they want some pieces of it or all pieces of it, and each person can customize their toolkit. So if they don't want the kitchen faucet aerator, they don't need to take it, because that's a really good example of a lot of kitchen faucets don't accept an aerator if it's the pull-out model. So I'm trying not to put products out there that people aren't going to use. So we're going to be at the primary school, the second drive, not the main drive at the primary school, but the second one at the park off of Grayson. And then the farmer's market on the 23rd. And then if supplies are still left, we will be giving out supplies at City Hall. So that is the summary of what's coming up in the next couple of weeks for me.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
Terrific.
you.
Any questions of Ms. Toole? No? Thank you for a fine presentation. We appreciate it.
Of course. And I do have just paperwork on what's in the drought toolkit for you guys.
Okay, great. All right. Next is a proclamation. I understand Ms. Upton is here to receive it. Welcome. Nice to have you here. I'm going to read it, and then if you would like to say a few words, by all means do. So, City of St. Helena Proclamation, National Sudden Cardiac Arrest Awareness Month. Whereas approximately 400,000 out-of-hospital cardiac arrests occur each year in the United States, and whereas the national survival rate from cardiac arrest is a dismal 10%, and whereas sudden cardiac arrest can happen to any person regardless of age, education, race, or socioeconomic background, and whereas individuals and families can take simple steps to avoid the tragedy of the unnecessary loss of life, and whereas awareness of the symptoms of sudden cardiac arrest, a victim has collapsed and cannot be awakened, and whereas knowing what actions to take, call 911 and push hard and fast in the middle of the chest, hands-only CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, and whereas applying an AED, automatic external defibrillator, if one is available, and whereas taking these actions can double the chances of survival, and whereas St. Helena is working to make our community a heart-safe community, now therefore be it resolved that I, Alan Galbraith, Mayor of the City of St. Helena, along with the St. Helena City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of October 2015 as National Sudden Cardiac Awareness Month, recognizing that increasing awareness will save lives. As the number of citizens who know the signs of cardiac arrest, who know to call 911, and who do CPR and apply an AED increases, so will survival. The Council encourages community members to observe this month and appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. That's the proclamation. And Ms. Upton, if you have a few words, please come to the microphone. Great.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. My name is Caroline Upton, and actually I was born and raised here in St. Helena. I'm now a citizen in Calistoga. I'm one of the educators for the emergency medical services of the county through PI, which is Public Information and Education. We are very excited that you are having this be a proclamation for October being the Sudden Cardiac Arrest Awareness Month. We here in Napa County are working hard to improve the survival rates from sudden cardiac arrest. And one of the main things, as you spoke earlier, is the awareness factor. If someone collapses and is not responsive, to know to call 911, to know to push hard and fast on the center of someone's chest, and to be able to use an AED, know where one is, and know how to use it. So we thank you again from the county in this proclamation and in bringing awareness to the citizens of St. Helena regarding cardiac arrest. Thank you. I'd like to bring up Brian Henriksen, who is our Emergency Medical Services Administrator.
Before you get away, let me give you
Right.
the proclamation.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Brian Henriksen, Emergency Medical Services Administrator with Napa County. The county also proclaimed October to be Sudden Cardiac Awareness Month, and it is a very important proclamation in communities throughout the United States as we look to improve cardiac arrest survival. And I just wanted to follow up to Caroline and say that we are launching an effort at the county to designate communities throughout the county as heart-safe communities, and communications going out to the city managers and to the fire chiefs this month to help them with coordinating how you can improve education around chest compression, CPR, and AED placement in your communities to increase the chances of survival from sudden cardiac arrest. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda is the consent calendar. And again, any member of the council or any member of the public can ask that a item on the consent calendar be pulled, in which case we'll go through the normal process. We have quite a number of items on the consent calendar, so just bear with me. 10. Item 10 on our calendar. First item on the consent calendar. Consideration and proposed approval of a resolution authorizing the conversion of the St. Helena Fire Department Chevy Suburban to St. Helena Police Department use not to exceed $10,000, funded through Citizens Option for Public Safety grant program. 11. Consideration and proposed approval of a resolution authorizing the purchase of 9 new mobile police radios from Motorola Solutions, Inc. through Apex Industry in the amount of $19,410.25, funded through Citizens Option for Public Safety grant program. 12. Consideration and proposed approval of a resolution entering into a memorandum of understanding for coordination of law enforcement efforts between the Culinary Institute of America at Greystone and the St. Helena Police Department. 13. Consideration and proposed approval of a resolution approving 2 custom modifications to the utility billing module with Springbrook for a one-time cost of $1,350 to, 1, create an automatic upload linking connect to Springbrook for leak alarms, and 2, create a custom report from Springbrook for actual and potential water leaks, and approval of ongoing maintenance cost of $378 associated with these modifications. 14, consideration of proposed resolution approving the First Amendment to the Professional Services Agreement for professional services in the amount of $25,000 with COWI North America, Inc. for construction management inspection services for CIP W-84 Bell Canyon intake mid-valve repair. 15, consideration of proposed approval of a resolution rescinding Resolution 2015-112 and adopting a resolution revising the APN from 009-010-014 to 009-100-014 for the annexation of territory into the St. Helena Municipal Sewer District Number 1, MSD Annexation Number 118-609 McCorkle Avenue, St. Helena, APN 009-100-014. 16, consideration of proposed approval of a resolution approving an amended agreement for consultant services with Frank's Janitorial to include 2 additional days per week of trash and restroom services at City Hall for an additional amount of $2,990, and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement for consultant services for a total not to exceed $59,880. 17, consideration of proposed approval of a resolution to reinstate full-time chief building official position at a cost of $101,632 for fiscal year 2015-16. So those are the items on the consent calendar. Does anybody wish to pull any of those? All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Move to approve items 10 through 17.
Second.
All right, Ms. Black, roll call.
Vice Mayor White?
Yes.
Councilmember Kroll?
Yes.
Pitts?
Yes.
Doring?
Yes.
Mayor Galbraith?
Yes. The next item on our agenda is the city's general plan update process, removal of implementation action LU2F on page 2-35, policy ES1F on page 3-11, and implementing action ES2B on page 313, specifically relating to hotels and residential areas.
Mr. Mayor, I need to recuse myself from this discussion
okay.
like I did before.
Very
for
good.
Financial conflict reasons, so
All right.
you know when you're done.
All right.
Let's go here. Easier.
Okay. Ms. Phillips.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. So back in April 2015, we held a meeting and we reviewed the general plan. It's a project we've been working on for many, many years. I believe this current staff with this council has made tremendous progress in the past 6 months or so, or even the past year, as we strive towards completing this general plan update. And so in April, we brought to you a document for review, and we've been working off that document ever since. On September 8th, we came back to the council and we identified a few things, some insignificant updates that needed to happen, some language changes, but we also brought to you a couple of items that we wanted policy direction on, as that's the role of the council. And one of them is this item before you tonight, and that was removed. That was basically with regards to hotels and residential areas. The council had a long discussion about it. What we're trying to do is be creative. Part of your council goals is to look at additional revenue sources, and so we're a very small community, and so staff was trying to look for options that would assist the council in achieving its goals in a very fair and open way. Since that meeting, we received quite a bit of feedback that it just wasn't the right time. It happened very quickly, and maybe this would hinder the general plan's ability to move forward in the manner that we were hoping and in the schedule that we were hoping, and that certainly wasn't our intention. And so I'm making the recommendation to the council that that language be removed from the general plan. And just to be incredibly clear, it's not being removed to be put anywhere else and worked on somewhere in secret. It's just being removed. And so if there is any kind of a hotel that would be proposed on some kind of residential property, it would go through the normal, full public process of review. And so my recommendation this evening for you is to remove that language from the general plan document, the update that we're working on currently.
Are there any initial questions of Ms. Phillips? No? Let me open the public hearing then. Does anybody wish to comment on this publicly?
Jeff Ellsworth, 1434 Sylvana. I think it's just might have been reading this incorrectly. It says removal of the first two items. It says removal of implementation action LU 2F on page 235 policy, policy ES 1F on page 313, and implementing action ES 2B on page 313. I just want to make sure that's not saying it's removing two things and implementing a third. I just wanted clarification that.
I took this verbiage exactly out of the staff report that was presented on September 8th, and it's removing all of that language.
Okay.
There is no action that's going to occur with this item.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
All right. Any further public comment? I'll close the public hearing and invite council comment. Mr. White?
I think this is prudent. And I don't know what else to say, except I didn't want to see this as a distraction for getting the general plan finished and out of the way and done for a long period of time. So I'm all in favor of this.
Right. Mr. Doring?
I agree with the recommendation from the city manager.
I agree also.
Yes, I agree. In my work years ago, or at least what I observed in Washington from time to time, is that sometimes there are trial balloons. They go up and they come down. And so nothing wrong with that. Actually, what the city council, I think, was saying, hey, is with respect to this, which we knew was controversial, was to send it to the Planning Commission for its consideration, recommendation, but staff now says no, it will go through the normal general plan process, and quite frankly, I think that's the appropriate way to go as well. So at this point, I'll accept a motion to accept the staff recommendation on this item.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Black?
Councilmember Kroll, if you could turn on your microphone.
It is on, sorry, just was not.
Thank you. Vice Mayor White?
Yes.
Councilmember Kroll?
Yes.
Doring?
Yes.
Mayor Galbraith?
Yes.
Jeez.
A promotion there.
Wow, that was quick.
All right. Next item
Bring
is...
Greg back.
Oh, that's good. We need Mr. Pitts. The next item on our agenda is consideration and proposed approval of a resolution appointing 7 members to the ad hoc revenue source task force. And I gather, Mr. Pitts, you've not heard from the FPPC at this point.
I haven't, but I've removed myself from consideration, and per our city attorney's good counsel, it allows me to participate in the selection process.
All right, excellent.
As long as it's known that I'm not going to participate in it.
All right, it falls upon, well, let me open the public hearing. Does anybody wish to comment publicly here before I make my nominations? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Under our code, the duty falls on the mayor to make the nominations, and what I propose to do is to make the nominations, and then if any member of the council wishes me to remove a nomination, we'll remove it, have a discussion, and then resubmit it. But at least I'm hoping that some of my nominations will prove to be non-controversial. So let me go through the folks that I propose nominating. As council members, I propose to nominate myself and the vice mayor, Mr. White. For the planning commissioner, I propose to nominate the chair of the planning commission, Ms. Parker. And for the 4 community members, and we had 11 applicants, and this was a very tough job to make recommendations. I did consult with the vice mayor. I did not consult with anybody else with respect to these recommendations. So the recommendations are in alphabetical order. Jeff Conwell, Katie Leonardini, Jack Stewart, and Chuck Vondra. So the initial question is whether any member of the council would like any of those removed from the list for further discussion.
I would.
Which?
I'd like Sarah Parker, Jeff Conwell, and Jack Stewart removed.
All right. So at this point, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the mayor, the vice mayor, and Ms. Leonardini, sorry.
So moved.
What about Mr.
Wasn't there
Vondra?
one more? Oh, and Chuck Vondra.
Oh, and Mr. Vondra. Okay, very good. Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Black?
Councilmember Doreen?
Yes.
Pitts?
Yes.
Kroll?
Yes.
Vice Mayor White?
Yes.
Mayor Galbraith?
Yes. All right. Ms. Kroll?
Okay, well, I guess one just in opening comment is I was a little bit disappointed. The mayor's right, he does have the nominating power under our type of city. However, in the past, we have had a more collaborative discussion before we've had outright nominations, and I'm disappointed that that didn't happen in this case, because I think we certainly don't want it to look like we have a dictatorship here, and it was starting to feel that way a little bit to me. But being said, and I just want to preface this because all of it, we live in a small town, and so this isn't like a personal, pulling someone's name isn't like a personal dislike, and it's more that I feel someone else would be more appropriate as opposed to this person not being appropriate. So with the Planning Commission choice, I would have suggested Bobby. I think that Bobby has shown us in the past time on her commission that she has been committed. She's come to pretty much every single city council meeting. She's mature, she's open-minded, and she has the wisdom of years behind her. And so I think that, in my view, she would be a better choice.
All right. Well, how do we proceed? Would you like to nominate Ms. Minette?
Well, other people might want to comment. My point is to have more of a discussion.
Okay, sure. Go ahead.
Do we want to deal with that first and then go to the other
I think we should.
two that remain? Yeah, look, I'm a little bit torn. I enjoy working with Bobby and Sarah both. I think in this case, if I had to pick one, it's almost a coin flip for me because they're both great. I do see Bobby attending more of our meetings, and I think for that reason I would lean in favor of Bobby.
Mr. Doring?
I don't have a preference. I think they're both excellent. I think that the mayor has made some wise choices, and I don't have any reason to disagree with his choices. But I do agree that a little discussion is nice to get some perspective. Frankly, I'd like to see 7 community members and no government folks on this task force, but obviously that's not the process. So
Well, that brings up another point, which is it possible to expand the roster?
Well, I think it would have to be agendized at another meeting if we were to do that. So it's certainly possible to do that.
I'd like to thank the community and those folks who have applied. There are a number of excellent candidates, and so there's no one that's good or bad or deficient in any way. They're all excellent candidates, and so it's a close call. I think diversity, a wide range of voices, different locations, different backgrounds is a good thing for this task force.
Could we choose the 4, 2, and 1 and then agendize possible expansion as a follow-up discussion?
Well, I brought this item to you. You created this committee, so you had the opportunity to look at the number of members and the makeup of those members. I would caution you with regards to time. The idea is to get a report to you in January so it can impact the 16-17 budget. I alone have to manage this task force, and the mayor and I have talked about the workload. It's a tremendous amount of workload to take on a task force. I think this task force needs to meet every other week to be able to get the work done that we need to get done. And every time you add members, that adds work and questions and more load for me. To me, you have a good number. Whether you want to change that mix up, it's all within your discretion, but that means we're postponing it until the second meeting in October, which I had hoped to have the first meeting right around that council meeting so we can get going, which means I'd have to delay it till sometime in November. We're starting to get into the holidays, I'm losing time, and it's going to be very difficult to deliver a report in January.
Yeah, and for me, it's more in reaction to seeing such a good turnout and roster of folks, and wanting to make sure that we're representing as wide a cross section of our community, and big thinking, creative thinking in terms of who's going to serve on this task force. So that's sort of the motivation.
And we can't just expand it right now? I mean,
No.
why would that? Oh.
No, it would violate the Brown Act to do that. It has to be agendized. Well, what I propose is that we proceed with the appointments, that we can make this evening, and then have a discussion in terms of whether we direct staff to say, at our next meeting, we would like to add 2 more.
All right, well, let's just proceed with our discussion then.
All right. So we were talking about the planning commissioner, and that's between Ms. Parker and Ms. Manette. Mr. White?
Well, I think we've already discussed it, and I was fine with the nomination that you had made. I had thought about it quite a bit, and I think Sarah would be fine on the committee. And
all right.
So,
any further discussion? Ms. Black, the chair would invite a motion to appoint Ms. Parker.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Black?
Councilmember Doring,
Yes.
Pitts,
Yes.
Kroll,
Yes.
Vice Mayor White,
Yes.
Mayor Galbraith.
Yes. Okay.
Okay, so you want me to just continue since I'm the one that...
Sure.
So the other, it's not so much that I wouldn't want those 2 on the committee, it's just I think that a better choice would be, my first other choice would be Donna Hines. I think she's shown incredible interest in the city. She has applied twice to the Planning Commission. She is been a really active member of our community. She's here tonight. She's a parent in the school district. She comes from somewhere else, and sometimes I think fresh eyes in a committee like this is important. And so I just would really like to see her be able to participate in this, on this committee. And then, I mean, do you want me to tell you who else I think?
Well, let's talk about Ms. Hines for just a moment. To me, she was a very strong runner-up, without a doubt. My only concern is that, as you say, she's new to the community, and my thinking was that Mr. Conwell, Mr. Stewart have very long connections to the community, and if they buy into the report, it might carry a little more credibility community-wide. That was what was going through my mind.
You know, I don't know. I mean, I know Mr. Conwell quite well. I respect him. I consider him a friend. He serves the community already on the school board. One thing that made me a little bit hesitant about him, to be frank, was his response to the question of why you want to serve on this committee. His response was, because the mayor asked me to. And I feel like we need someone with a little bit more passion for this job than just because you asked him to. I thought that was, for me, a little bit telling. Like, he'll do it, but maybe he doesn't want to do it that much, whereas there's other people who are more interested in doing it and had a more passionate response to that. Nothing against Jeff Conwell. Like I'm saying, I'm just, we're parsing hairs here, and I just feel like he's already serving the community. I would love to give someone new a chance.
All right.
That's my input.
Mr. Pitts?
I want to add some commentary. I really am supportive of seeing Wayne Armstrong on this committee. The reason why is I think that he is a very successful business person on Main Street, and I think he really understands the dynamics of Main Street and what's happening on Main Street. And I don't think we have anyone else that's operating a business on Main Street on this list, and to me that's really important, at least in the downtown historic core. And so I believe that his enterprises represent what St. Helena is all about. And, for that reason, I really would like to see him on this list.
Mr. Doring?
I would just echo my previous comments.
Mr. White?
Which were?
It's very
You
hard.
agree with the mayor's list?
I agree with the mayor's choices here. I don't have a real strong feeling one way or another. I would agree, though, that it does make sense to have somebody from the business community downtown. But again, I'll defer to the mayor on this one.
I mean, those are both great comments, and I think it's hard to pick 4 out of the choices that there were.
Look,
so
Maybe we can add them on the next round.
Well, I just
I'd be
didn't
open to
see,
that.
the other thing is I just didn't see that much business experience in Jeff's application that would be relevant to this committee.
Yeah, look,
And it's not that, it's just I see so much more in Donna and Wayne's in terms of what they could contribute. So,
this is very, very difficult, and I think where my head is would be I don't have any difficulty with nominating Mr. Armstrong or Ms. Hines, and then coming back in 2 weeks with the thought that we'd add the other 2. We'll work it out. Make it easier to achieve a quorum. So, at this point, the chair would entertain a motion to nominate Mr. Armstrong and Ms. Hines.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Black?
Councilmember Pitts?
Yes.
Vice Mayor White?
Yes.
Councilmember Doring?
Yes.
Kroll?
yes.
Mayor Galbraith?
Yes. You can see I'm not a dictator.
I appreciate that.
All right, and then I think you have direction from council on this one to come back with 2 more positions next time, and we won't reopen the application process. Okay, that takes us to item 20, which is the excuse me, I'll go back. Agenda. Consideration of proposed approval of a resolution adopting a new nonprofit funding policy and related program application and guidelines.
Thank you. So when we went through the 15-16 budget process with you, one of the questions that the new finance director and I had was, how do you allocate funding to all the fabulous nonprofits that are providing amazing and great and necessary services to the residents of St. Helena? Normally there's some sort of process in place. There wasn't, and so unfortunately we didn't have the time to develop a new process. April joined us in November. We needed to get through that difficult budget process that we did together last spring. And so one of the things we committed to you was to bring back a process that would restart how you look at nonprofit funding for this community. And it would open up that process so that additional nonprofits could be part of the process, and you could review their applications and consider funding others in addition to, or whatever the council chose. One of the challenging things with this is we are adopting just the policy. So at some point in the budget process, we tell you how much money we think potentially could be available. You can tell us more, you can tell us less, but the idea is to have a process in place every year that's open and fair and competitive, and then the amount of funding is based on the city's financial capacity and council's direction with regards to how much you would like to contribute to the nonprofits. So this is not a budget decision. This is just a policy and process decision. And so what I did was I tried to come up with a process that was less staff intensive. These can be, and I've done them before in other cities, these can really take on a life of their own. And we just do not, as the story I tell so often, we don't have the staff capacity to do something like that. And so I spoke with the mayor and asked if he thought it would be appropriate to have the mayor play a role in this process, because so much of it is a council-based policy and council-based decision-making. And so it's a little bit unique. You won't often see that, but we thought maybe for our small community this might work. So let me walk you through what the policy looks like. So we have none, so we're not changing a policy. We've never had a policy in place.
And thank you, by the way. I have been hoping for this
Oh,
for
good,
quite some time.
good.
Before it was darts against the wall.
It was.
Yes.
And so walking through, if you go to the policy page, walking through, we're requiring that any nonprofit who is eligible for funding would be a 501c3. There'll be some accountability, so we'll have some standardization to how information is provided to the city. We're allowing only one grant application per nonprofit agency because we do have limited monies. And we're really focusing on services, so we're not allowing any capital asset projects. We think that we felt, and again, this is for your discussion and your policy, it's just what we thought might be helpful for the council or that the council would support. Our goal would be to give the nonprofits at least a 6-week notice of posting the information online. They'd have 6 weeks to fill out the application. We certainly, if council adopts this tonight or wants to make modifications and we come back at another meeting, we'll get this up as soon as possible and get this out to our nonprofit community so they have as much time as possible to look at the application and look at the policy and be ready for when we post the information for the 16-17 budget. So under the funding award, the process would be that we post the information, applications are due by a date certain. Those applications then are reviewed by the mayor, and they're reviewed only for completeness and eligibility. No decisions are made, but part of the requirement is your application has to be complete and you have to be eligible. So it's fairly objective, or is objective criteria. And so that's where the mayor can help with staff time, is that he or she would then review those applications. Those that are complete and eligible would be given to the city manager, and the city manager would then basically create a staff report with very little information. Nothing would be summarized. The applications would just be attached. And a council meeting would be selected. And depending upon the number of applications, we would either schedule a special meeting. It could take a couple hours to get through them, or if there's not that many and we feel like we have a council meeting where we can add this to the agenda, we would do it as a normal course of a regular council meeting. We would strongly encourage the nonprofits to attend, as council would, or the staff would not play an intermediary. So if the council has questions with regards to an application, they would ask the applicant and not staff. And so we would not be there to help you answer questions or be able to respond on behalf of the applicants. And so at that point, council can make the selections. Hopefully by then we have an amount, or maybe we have a range, or we have some sort of idea of how much funding would be available for these groups, and the council would then award the grants as they see appropriate. We've also added an agreement, so we've always granted these monies to our nonprofits with no agreement. And so we'd have an agreement put in place that each nonprofit would need to sign prior to funding. Funding is based on a reimbursement basis only, and they'd also have to submit a final report, which they do today. And so we've tried to put some controls in place. It's very open, it's very transparent, and allows the council to have that interaction with our nonprofits and make decisions for the community. And so we've also attached the application that the nonprofits would receive, so you can see what that looks like. We ask some very basic questions. I've done grant applications. They can be incredibly onerous, especially for small nonprofits. I don't want them to spend hours and hours, 40, 50, 60 hours trying to respond to a grant application. So I tried to ask very targeted questions. Again, if council had feedback, if there's something that we didn't cover, you'd like an additional question, that can certainly be added as well. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if you have any budget questions for Director Mitz, she's here as well.
Any initial council?
Like I said, I'm so happy to see this because I was uncomfortable playing God, deciding who to give money to and who not to give money to. This is a much more structured, fair, transparent method.
All right. Let me open the public hearing. Does anybody wish to speak at public hearing? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. I think we all agree with Ms. Kroll's comments. So at this point, what action is required here?
I would just add one more comment. I think it's important to have some kind of a certification in the process that the organization will agree to abide by the city's non-discrimination policy.
Oh, good point.
That's a good point, too.
We have the conflict of interest code, but we can add that. That's great.
And the other comment is, I still think the evaluative process is still a little vague. It refers back to the mission of the city, and I'm not sure we want to take the time. Maybe down the road we can refine this a little bit more. You know, when you look at the mission of the city right now, our mission is to generate revenue. It's been our short-term mission, but it's becoming our long-term mission. I think over time, as we start focusing on the mission of the city, then we can tie that back so that when folks come to apply, their application is aligned with what we are all about as a community. And I think that hard work has to come, and I know that will come probably in the next budget cycle. So I just wanted to put that out there. Right now, it's very difficult when you have 6, 7, 8 organizations coming to decide, well, how does that organization's efforts align with what we're trying to do as a city council? That to me, it needs to be honed in a little bit more, and maybe that process will come forward later.
Okay, very good. All right, so the chair will accept a motion to approve a resolution adopting a new nonprofit funding policy and related program application guidelines with the addition of the non-discrimination clause.
So moved.
Mr. Doring suggested.
Second.
Mrs. Black.
Councilmember Doring,
Yes.
Vice Mayor White,
Yes.
Councilmember Pitts,
Yes.
Kroll,
Yes.
Mayor Galbraith.
Yes. And then final item on our agenda tonight is a draft. It's a basic emergency operations plan, and it's information only. Lead staff is Ms. Phillips again.
Thank you. As I've mentioned before, for me, emergency preparedness is something that, as a leader of an organization or a department, I've always taken very seriously in my career. I've actually responded to numerous emergencies, and when you're prepared and staff works well together in an emergency situation, the ability to respond works far, far better. I've been part of an active EOC. I know what it looks like. I know what response looks like. I know how stressful the incidents can be, and part of my job as your city manager is to make sure that we're ready in the event of an emergency. We're a little bit behind in some of our emergency preparedness. And so one of the things that I wanted to provide for the council, for the community, and for my staff who might have to respond in the event of an emergency and activate the EOC is at least an up-to-date general plan of what emergency preparedness looks like. So I've done a couple of things. One, when I first got here, I implemented performance work plans and performance evaluations. In those work plans, I required that every employee of the city of St. Helena complete National Incident Management Systems training. No one really had been through it here, and it's critically important, not only for the knowledge of the employees, but our ability to be reimbursed in the event of an emergency by FEMA. And so every employee has gone through that training. We're all certified, 100 and 700. That's really important. We recently sent a couple of employees to some emergency preparedness training with regards to finance and administration. If you're already hearing things from NAPA, one of the challenges is it's not you can respond to an emergency. It's the ability to have all the documentation and get reimbursed, as we've learned. Also, it's the documentation that's so critically important. And so we're trying to get in line with all of those things. And so the point of the document is just to show you that we're making progress in this, how it works in Napa County. Because we are such a small city, Napa County takes the lead in emergency preparedness. They are preparing their emergency operations plan. They were nearing completion when the earthquake happened. They were nearing completion again when the fires happened. So they plan to finish that within the next 6 months or a year. And then each city has basically an annex to that major plan. So the plans are, 6 inches thick, and we have our own little annex plan for St. Helena. So what I thought I would do is just sort of culminate all that information into this smaller document that I wrote that just provides basic information. So the exec staff has read this, the managers will read this, and so there's some fundamental understanding of what it means to show up for an emergency and to activate an EOC and what our roles and responsibilities are. I wrote in the back of the staff report some steps that we've taken towards being more prepared for an emergency. As I mentioned, we've all gone through the NIMS training. We've also purchased 1 satellite phone and have ordered 3 more that are about to be delivered. The key to the satellite phones is that we're able to communicate. The police chief, the fire chief, myself, and the public works director will each have one. Those are critically important so that we can communicate. No one knows where anybody's going to be. We could be all home in bed, like with the earthquake that happened a year ago. We could all be here at work. But the important part is that we can communicate, and so we'll have those satellite phones. We sent the staff to some training. As funny as it sounds, we installed a television into the main conference room, and that becomes important for our decision makers, because I can tell you personally, your number one source of information is going to be the news. And so the ability to have a television in the room, or the council, because the council's not in the EOC, they're in a separate room, for you to be able to see the television, to be able to see what's happening as we're prepping you for press conferences and to make statements to the public and provide that information, you will feel so disconnected if you don't have that news media available to you. And so we've done that as part of our emergency preparedness. I've completed this document, and I've also designed a tabletop exercise, which we have scheduled for the end of October, where all the exec staff and the managers will be coming together, and we'll be doing basically a drill of emergency event here in St. Helena and practicing how we do that. We went over this morning, we looked at our EOC. That also needs some work, and so we'll be working on that as well. And in addition, today, earlier in the agenda, you did purchase some additional new radios, so we'll have better communication, which is very important for the police department, not only day to day, but in the event of an emergency. And also the conversion of the vehicle. The police department then can have a command vehicle and be out and about and have a better ability to manage an incident if we need that. And so all this is just to tell you we're working on it. We have a great team. A lot of emergency response is the teamwork, and we work incredibly well together. And so I have a lot of confidence in this team if we did have to activate the EOC, because we work so well together, but we do need to know what our roles are, and that's what we're working on now. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, before we have further questions, is there any public comment? Are there any questions of city staff?
No, but one thing I would add, I found that in that Valley fire, one of the best sources of information was Facebook, because the CAL FIRE, everybody was trying to get information from CAL FIRE, and it wasn't loading. So if the city had, I know the fire department, our fire department has one, but if that would be a place that people could check for updates and information and that kind of thing, it would be because sometimes the websites take a long time to load.
So one of the positions is a public information officer. So you have a liaison who runs the information back and forth between the command center and the incident commander, who is me. If I'm on site, that person runs the information back so that I'm not the one coming back and forth. There's actually that individual bringing you the information. This is what's happening. Here's what we need to tell the community. The PIO will then write your press releases for you and post that kind of information. So if we have cell service and internet service, we can certainly do that. If we have a website, any of those things, and obviously communicating with the media becomes an important part of any emergency response. But there's a position specifically designated for that.
Well, my only comment is that I'm delighted that we're moving forward with respect to this. I think the very first time I met Ms. Phillips, I asked for a copy of the emergency operations plan, and as I listened to her this evening, she came forward in masterful understatement. The date that our last plan was approved, and I've got it right in front of me, never far from my desk, November 26, 1996, almost 20 years ago. And so obviously a lot has changed, some for the better, some for the worse, as unfortunately we see sometimes. But it's crucial that we have a current plan, and that not just senior members of city staff be familiar with it, but every member of the city council and every member of the planning commission needs to be familiar with it as well. And it may well be that members of other city committees need to be take the time to read it through too. We need to disperse the information that's in this plan through the community. But in any event, our city manager's taken a giant step forward here, and I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Any further comments on this? I guess with that, I'll adjourn the meeting. 7 o'clock.
Looks like I'll make a tri-tip marinade.